As a pastor, I have a very unique perspective. Maybe it's not that unique considering Christianity has been around for so long, but the only thing that's going to move the needle in our world isn't government, it isn't better education, it isn't more funding, it isn't put whatever you want in front as the solution that maybe people think about. The only thing that's going to really move the needle is a transformation of the individual internally. And the only thing that really is going to do that is the gospel.
My name is JP Plaisance, and this used to be my home. So actually, whenever I got dropped off at the park, this was the tree that I stayed at right here. So I would just put my sleeping bag down right here and then prop up against this tree. You could do anything you want. You could read books, you could watch the traffic, you could, great sunsets at this vantage point. But that was the tree right there. So
one night we were having dinner and Dad brought home a homeless person off the street. Not only did Dad see and recognize there was homelessness, but he acted on it. He brought somebody home into the house, and we couldn't ignore it. We couldn't say it was somebody else's problem because they were there eating dinner with us. I remember one night Mom was cooking a steak dinner for everybody, and she gave up her steak dinner for this homeless guy. And at the end of it, Dad took him and dropped him off somewhere. We didn't know where, but that was probably the first real experience that homelessness is something very personal. These are people. There's somebody's daughter, son, mother, father, sister, brother. You couldn't ignore it.
Yeah, as a police officer, you would patrol the streets and you would see the homeless camps and you would deal with the people. And a lot of times it was just maybe the attitude of a revolving door or just another inconvenience because there were underlying issues that weren't a police issue. It wasn't something the court was going to be able to help with, or the jail. That's not the right place for these people. So there were times you would try to help them by handing out hygiene items or things like that, but ultimately you felt helpless unless they committed a crime.
When I was a kid, we were literally the face of poverty in Oregon in a newspaper article in April of 1982. I lived in a tent, I lived in a barn, we lived in a bus that had a wood stove and a chimney out the top.
In a time such as this, I think being mayor has a lot to do with leading well, respectfully, and with kindness and love. Most of all, with hope. That just because times seem dark, it doesn't mean it's not going to get better. There may be a storm out there, but Jesus is in the boat, and we're going to be okay.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me.
Church has a very unique place in the structure of the kingdom. It is the solution, God's solution, Jesus' solution to winning the entire world. And that can feel big and that can feel scary, but in the context of this situation with people on the street and people lost, we are supposed to be a place that is welcoming, a place that brings opportunity to ask questions, to bring in doubt, to bring in their pains and hurts and trauma and not have it all put together and be a place where we can say, yeah, that's a great question.
As a police officer, almost everyone in their interview says, why do you want this job? I want to help people. But what does that help look like? There was a pastor at my church, Pastor Matt McCullen, who challenged me, why don't you do mentoring at the UGM? And it took me a while because knowing the thoughts and kind of my mindset, that was the last thing I wanted to do. I mean, and I really thought about it and went back to Scripture, and what does Scripture say? Those are people, those are sons and daughters of God, and we're called to minister to them. And so despite my own biases, putting that aside and going, you know what, I'm gonna try it.
Even though the mission was just a couple blocks away, I wanted to be out on the streets because I wanted nothing to do with their rules. So my first Oregon winter came around, and that's what got me into the mission. Just as a guest, just for the night. I wasn't gonna stay there for long. I started to see the staff there work and just show their kindness through their acts, and things began to change then. I imagined, hey, you know, I can stay for a little bit and try this out. And then they kept asking me to get into the New Life Fellowship, and I kept denying it. And then finally, one day when I hit a new rock bottom, I joined the NLF.
When JD Health started working with UGM, we started in that barbershop, in the old barbershop, and we started out just providing behavioral health screening and primary care screening. We have dedicated clinic space in each location where we provide primary care, counseling, medication-assisted therapy when necessary. And I don't want to work in another setting. I want to work with this population because this is still a near and dear to my heart population. My dad is still underhoused. I bring that to my work because I truly believe that people should be treated as people.
Yeah, well, it hits home because we are all connected relationally, whether we have a friend or a family member or somebody that has a struggle with homelessness. We can choose to see it, but even more importantly, the lesson that I think I learned was we need to choose to act on it. And everybody can act on it in a different way. Our story is your story, is we are a member of the community. We are people that are in a position to be able to help, to choose to do something. Things will not get done unless we choose to do it. And we have to recognize we are a broader family in the community.
You know, I stood in that window on the corner, on the second or third floor, I think it is, and looked out over Salem and just realized that what's happening in that building is changing the whole person. It's not just feeding the stomach. It's not just helping the mind, but it's working in spirit. And that's the whole person.
When I hear our story as your story, I think about all the faces that I met during my recovery. It's because the community got together to help me when I was in need that any of this was possible. On the streets, the best I would get would be scowls, grunts, if even looked at all. But once I got to Salem, I was fed because of the community. I was able to take a shower because of the community. I was clothed because of the community. I was able to find God and even go to college. So if anyone out there is listening that participated or maybe thinking about participating, I may not have met you yet, but I want you to know that I care about you. Because if it wasn't for the community, none of this would be possible.